Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Easy Chat English podcast. I'm Amelia, and as always, I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Ethan. Today, we're talking about a topic that touches everyone: happiness. What does it mean? Where do we find it? And how can we hold on to it? We'll be sharing our own stories about happiness, discussing its ups and downs, and giving you some great vocabulary along the way. So, get ready to chat and learn with us.
Hi everyone. I'm really excited about today's topic because happiness is something we all think about. Whether it's a small moment of joy or a long-lasting feeling of contentment, happiness plays such a big part in our lives. We'll also explore how culture and society shape our views on happiness, plus give you tips on how to find and maintain it.
So, let's start by asking the big question. What does happiness mean to you, Ethan? It's such a personal thing, right?
Absolutely. For me, happiness is not just about those momentary pleasures like eating a slice of cake or buying something new. Don't get me wrong, those things make me happy for a bit, but lasting happiness comes from a sense of fulfillment.
That's a great point.
Fulfillment is deeper than just being happy in the moment. It's about having a sense of purpose and feeling like you're doing something meaningful with your life. It's like having a feeling of personal growth and knowing that what you're doing matters. Not just to you, but maybe even to the people around you.
I totally get that. I used to think happiness was all about big, joyful moments, like going on a fun vacation or celebrating a major achievement. But over time, I've realized that happiness is more about finding happiness in everyday life, even in small things, like having a good conversation or enjoying some quiet time.
Exactly. Happiness is more than just excitement or temporary highs. It's about feeling contentment in your day-to-day life, being grateful for the little things, and not constantly chasing something bigger or better. It's personal, though. Everyone's got a different perspective on what makes them happy.
Yeah, and it changes too, right? What made me happy in my 20s is completely different from what makes me happy now. Back then, it was all about adventure and new experiences. But now, happiness is about feeling grounded, having strong relationships, and appreciating the little joys in life.
Absolutely. I think as we grow, we learn that happiness isn't just one thing. It's a mix of contentment, fulfillment, and those joyful moments, all of them playing a part in how we feel.
And I think everyone has a different personal perspective on what happiness means to them. For some, it's about achieving big goals, while for others, it's just about feeling at ease with themselves and the world.
Exactly. It's different for each of us. And that's what makes happiness such an interesting topic to talk about.
Now that we've talked about what happiness means to us, let's dive into the sources of happiness.
So where do you find happiness, Amelia?
For me, it's definitely about social connections. Spending time with family and friends brings me a lot of happiness. And, having a close-knit group of people who care about you is such a big part of feeling happy.
Oh, same here. Family is a big one for me too. But I also find happiness in my work. I love what I do and I feel like it gives me a sense of purpose. When I'm working on a project I'm passionate about, it doesn't feel like work in the traditional sense. It's fulfilling because I know I'm growing, learning, and making an impact in some way.
That's interesting. I think finding meaning in what you do is so important. For some people, happiness comes from achieving success at work, while for others, it's about their hobbies or spending time in nature. It's really different for everyone.
Exactly. And self-fulfillment is so personal. What makes one person happy may not work for someone else, and that's okay. The important thing is to figure out what makes you happy and go after it. Let's talk about how culture and society shape our views on happiness. Do you think where we grow up or the society we live in affects what we think happiness is?
Definitely. I grew up in a culture where happiness was often tied to success and achievement. There's this idea that you need to keep up with the Joneses, always wanting what others have, whether it's a better job, a bigger house, or more money. But as I've grown older, I've realized that materialism doesn't really bring long-lasting happiness.
Yes, there's so much societal pressure to have certain things or live a certain way to be happy. But I've noticed that in some cultures, Happiness is more about community and spending time with loved ones. It's less about what you have and more about who you're with.
That's so true. And the idea of happiness can also be influenced by cultural norms. For example, in some places, people focus more on work-life balance as a way to stay happy, while in others, people might prioritize career success above everything else. So, we've talked about where happiness comes from, but what about when things go wrong? It's not always easy to stay happy, is it?
No, it's not. Life is full of setbacks, and those can really challenge your happiness. I remember a time when I went through a really difficult period at work, and it was hard to stay positive. But I think what helped me was focusing on resilience. The idea that you can bounce back no matter how tough things get.
That's such a good point. Emotional challenges like stress, anxiety, or even burnout can really impact your happiness. I've had my fair share of those moments too. What's helped me is shifting my mindset, choosing to see the positives even in difficult situations.
Exactly. I think learning to overcome obstacles is a huge part of staying happy. It's not about pretending everything is perfect all the time, but rather finding ways to keep going and staying positive when things don't go as planned.
Okay, so let's share some tips on how to cultivate happiness in everyday life. What are some things you do, Ethan?
One thing that's been really helpful for me is practicing gratitude. Every day I try to think of a few things I'm grateful for. It helps me focus on the positive aspects of my life, even when things get tough.
I love that. I've also started practicing mindfulness. It's all about staying present and focusing on what's happening right now, rather than worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. It's made a big difference in how I approach everyday challenges.
That's a great one. Another tip I have is to take care of yourself. Self-care is so important. Whether it's getting enough sleep, exercising, or taking time to relax, it all helps to keep your well-being in check.
Absolutely. I also think that having a positive mindset is key to happiness. It doesn't mean ignoring the bad things, but rather choosing to focus on the good and not letting the negatives take over.
Now let's talk about how happiness can actually change you. Do you feel like being happy has had a positive impact on your life?
Definitely. I think when you're happy, it changes your whole outlook on life. You become more open, more optimistic, and more willing to take on challenges. For me, happiness has given me the confidence to try new things and not be afraid of failure.
Yes, I agree. I feel like happiness leads to personal growth. When I'm happy, I'm more productive, I have better relationships, and I feel healthier overall. It's like happiness has this ripple effect that touches every part of your life.
That's so true. I've also noticed that when I'm happy, my emotional transformation affects the people around me too. It's like happiness is contagious. When you're in a good place, it can lift others up as well.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about what happiness means, where it comes from, the challenges we face in staying happy, and even how it changes us. Hopefully, our listeners are feeling inspired to reflect on their own happiness.
Yes, and remember, happiness is a journey, not a destination. It's personal, and everyone's path to happiness is unique. Thanks for tuning in to the Easy Chat English podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the conversation and picked up some useful vocabulary along the way.
And if you have any thoughts about today's episode, feel free to share them with us. We'd love to hear your own stories about what makes you happy. Until next time, take care and keep learning.
Bye for now.